Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. Today's episode is being recorded on 5/18/24. Before we get into today's topic, which is going to be interesting, think of it as a partial Q&A, partial history lesson, so to speak. So we'll just go into the law of one first.
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved one, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, and let them bring you to your highest good. We pray for ourselves, our friends, our family, our loved ones, to let healing energies in, to let them love us and nourish us and bring us to our higher good. We ask for benevolence to come in now with no conflicting agenda, to come in to be able to have this conversation and to support it, so that everyone can have a good understanding and clarity of thought as this is going on. We pray for malevolence and mischievous beings to be swept away at this time in order for us to be able to peacefully have this conversation. And with that, and our great blessings to you all, we say so be it.
So be it. Okay. This one is going to be on Vincent van Gogh. He months ago, or last year, I believe, we went to the whole Van Gogh experience where he had a lot of his paintings, a lot of his phrases, sayings, everything, drawings, every note he had, everything was in the artistic display. And my mother, Laverne, and Joanne and I were there, and we're going again this time when it's merged with Monet's material. This time around, this time is going to be in August. It was September of last year, I believe. And I got video, I got photos of all of it. But this was the interesting part of it. I didn't really. And this was Van Gogh was telling me this was poignant over the months he's tried to contact me, saying that I wasn't feeling anything at first. He said was experiencing exactly some of the turns of events that he himself went through, times of emotional void and times of emotional overbearing, and pendulum swing, as well as being interfered with. And some of the bad guys like to disconnect you from spirit. It's not that you can be disconnected from spirit. That's the wrong choice of words. Your receptivity of it is dulled through psionic dampening of some kind, telepathy, telekinetics, AI, what have you. That's not the subject of the show. But what he was trying to say, and we had some negative stuff over the past several weeks that were disguising themselves as ghost hauntings, things of that nature. And I'll go into that in a different episode. They were basically trying to say they were ghosts when it was alien, psionic intrusion, all this whole bit. And what it was when we did the Frank Frazetta GIC. By now you will have seen that. That was before that I mentioned a session that I did where all these artists came through, connecting with real spirit. Well, a tripwire was tripped and saying, "How dare you contact the real thing? You have to get through us," kind of crap. From gray to tall white to military to AI. Doesn't matter what negative source you're naming. The premise is divide, conquer, control, and keep you from accessing the rest of you. Oversoul. From artistic to whatever it is that your passion and creativity is. Essentially what it boils down to. And I've wondered why I haven't touched on some creative pursuits in a while. This would be the dampening taking place. You've heard us talking about the dumbing. You've heard us talking about the psionic dampening also on GIC quite a bit. This is it. You even heard me talking about it on the Typical Skeptic program that I was on with Robert Khalil recently. So it can't be touched on enough. And this was a series of dreams, all this other stuff. It was a wild goose chase, making me think that my mother and I think that it was a haunting when it was not. I suppose, in a manner of speaking, but pegging the actual sources that were blocking us from creative spark. Now, it's interesting that we've set that up again at the end of or the middle of summer to go to this event again, because Van Gogh has tried off and on to try to communicate with me, and for some reason I've been resistant. He was saying what he was showing me was exactly how he was around people, how he was around his own artistic situations. He even directed me to a page this morning that talked about his life when he painted Starry Night, and he was actually in an insane asylum at that point, and those were also hospitals at that time as well. And he painted it from a window, his room window, but he added in an imaginary village and all this other stuff into it. Even Frank Frazetta said he was tapping into some galactic stuff as well, uh, from other expressions, realities, other parts of the multiverse, and his oversoul reality is what he was connecting to. And so he said that Vincent could point that out when he came through. But my understanding is that when he started, he was being interfered with very heavily even then. And and people may say, well, Chris, they didn't have the technology then. Yeah, there's the psionic war's been going on a while, so yeah. But at the same time, he was trying to access all those parts of him, from the painful parts to the joyful ones. And the whole thing I found out with his ear was actually one of those moments of like control where you know, like something, he may even possess you and cause you to do it, but he may have had a vulnerable moment of time. We can question him on that. That's specifically here in a moment. But I just find this very interesting. There are pages. I'm not going to go through the entire history of it. I just say the dates and a couple of points. But yeah, Vincent Van Gogh, 1853 to 1890. One of the best Doctor Who episodes you ever see is the one with Van Gogh. I may even find that segment at the end and paste it at the end of this. But I'll just say this one paragraph and a point he made to me before you say your part here, Joanna. But it says, Vincent Van Gogh, the eldest son of a Dutch Reformed minister and a bookseller's daughter, pursued various vocations, including that of an art dealer and clergyman, before deciding to become an artist at the age of 27. Now, also, this would match also a client that I've been talking to where the artist came through as well. It's very similarly trying to decide what to do, where to go. And then he went with art, the same. So over the course of his decade-long career, 1880 to 1890, he produced nearly 900 paintings and more than 1,100 works on paper. Ironically, in 1890, he modestly assessed his artistic legacy as very secondary importance. And, a lot of artists do this, and a lot of people also have this program in their head that, you're only famous when you die, and you'll see that from different seers too, from many of them that have passed away even in recent days. Their messages get out further. I've seen more posts from Abraham Hicks than I did ever when he was alive. So there is a truth to the concept, but at the same time, I believe there's a program embedded in there as well that people keep co-creating us. Oh, you're not going to be famous till you die. Well, at the end of the show, as these closing affirmation, blessing, closing of the circle, I have something that he wrote that talks about that very subject. So something that it was written for this episode. So, Joanna, did you want?
Basically, I think I'm going to reserve my conversation to you bringing him in. I think it probably is more related to having a conversation with him about different things than really me stating what I think my opinion is of it. So
Well, also, what you thought of the Van Gogh experience, though, when it was around too? What was the feeling surrounding that, though?
Well, I think it was I think it, I have to appreciate things again when you can get a broader context to the story, either of someone's life, what they were going through. I think they did an excellent job is trying to show sometimes the struggle when a person is trying to live that passion. I think there again, some of this I would have waited for conversation, but in my opinion, as we even say, live in your creative passion, do what you're supposed to do, that people often interpret that as that's going to be their financial, piece of the pie out of struggling, out of you never having, to worry about bills not being met, out of, and it doesn't necessarily mean that at all.
No.
It doesn't. It's a part of the tapestry. Again, what your soul and your, and the avatar who's here present is working on and experiencing it. And some of it actually is experiencing the struggle of what it means to try to be within your creative passion. That's part of the picture. Now, does it always have to be that way because of what you're saying? I agree. I agree. There is kind of this programming, and it also depends on what is your creative passion. What is it you're trying to get into? Is it going to ruffle feathers or not? So it's a complicated story, but I think Van Gogh is an interesting person to be able to speak to regarding all of this subject matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he did Starry Night, I believe, after the thing with his ear too. So where he went into the asylum after that. So yeah, and this was his I brought this in to have him come through, even though this is small. There were no statues or anything like that over more.
No, that was just
That's
a trinket from the show.
Yeah, trinket from the show. So what? I just heard my head. That's what you get similarly to the ear. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that was apparently a joke, but okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, there was an inordinate amount of interference prior to this. So obviously, you have something. I'm not saying co-create interference, but when you have something that it's really murky and then it comes out on the other end really bright and vibrant, then you know that something was trying to prevent you from connecting to point B over here. And so from point A. So that's usually as simple as that. So uh, uh, I just heard my magnets are creepy but acceptable. Okay. Um, and Isaac went, you should talk about creepy there, Mr. Earless. Okay, let's see. Mhm. Hey, oh, I had it wrong now. Okay. Crystal. Oddly enough, me channeling this way has not been done very often. I've inspired others to paint, others to do things in works of art, as was I while holding the brush. I connected to other aspects very much like Tolkien connected to Gildor, which was part of himself. I speak to you now as the, don't want to say fragmentary consciousness, but the aspect of the diamond or crystal that was once Van Gogh. If you saw my world, you would see some of my paintings, but you would also just see you would see a vast library. Frank Frazetta did things a different way. This, in the lifetime I was in human form, I did experience the extreme of one emotional end to the other. The thing with the ear was that extreme end. He's experienced this where there's like this compulsion sometimes to self-injure at times. And people that have done this, this is a form of possession. Yes, that existed then as well. But at the same time, it is also the inability to balance one's energy on what the earthly plane is, or what you call Midgard, or guarding the middle ground. That means also the highs and lows of the pendulum swing from flowery fields to barred covered asylum. This is exactly how this is. And people that have come in this way have come in with a passion, have come in with well, anyone really has a purpose, but come in with this vibrancy of creativity. If it is stifled in any way, shape, or form, or things do not come out exactly right, but the conduciveness or non-conduciveness of different energies and wavelengths and whatever is in the area can come out as fits of madness or look mad to that of the unkeen eye, as was depicted in the Doctor Who episode where I could see the swirls in the sky, where my counterpart in that show was saying the sky was not black but at night, but a deep blue with the swirls. Yes, I was seeing the dimensional openings. I was seeing other dimensional connections of the stars. I was seeing galactic origins. I was seeing all of these things, anything that I was connected to. People believe that they're connecting to a higher power. They are connecting more to themselves. They're connecting to that which is more of them, bringing that and grounding that here and showing it to all. This is why only after I passed on was the later on the artwork appreciated. And the ending of that Doctor Who episode was much appreciated as well. I could have, in the human form, used such a interference or distraction in that way. I knew I was not going to be around very long, given the fact that I was this way. It's even more so now where people like myself, because that creative spark is being dampened so heavily by various powers out there. They don't even have to have a name other than the fact that it is against what you are. If it's against what you are, why allow that into your space? If it is not within what you call the moment of non-time, yes, I know you have to do your day to day, and I had to do these things. For some, it is more of a slow, silent death to walk amongst that of not necessarily the rabble of people, but the rabble of the routine. And yes, people tried balancing this in, but some of this routine was created to keep people out of this, the spark. They think it's a grounding, when in fact, it is a decoupling or a degrounding away from the receptivity that is spirit. And that is all that is. You say benevolent source creator, but you know what I'm saying. And also looking at the different people in their routine, the day to day, the plants, the flowers, the all of it. Monet did something similar. He can touch on this at some point, touching that with nature, bonding that with nature. I also with the people in their everyday life. Not only was I an historical archivist in that way, but as an artist in that form, but also to bring forth, like Frank Frazetta said in the GIC, whereas he planted his artistic style and he was lost in the moment in a similar fashion. This is where uh, I, in my day to day, like what was depicted as the character in Doctor Who, it was that entirely 100% accurate. Sometimes tears would be there that I did not know what was truly there, but the pain of feeling the vibration, the pain of not being kind of feeling connected at times, but also connected at times, just like the character of Amy in it, where she'd forgotten her Rory. It was the same. Like part of me had been forgotten, and was also forgotten in the day that I'm doing was doing the thing on the art, where you see the reactions of the people in that episode, whereas people are just like, ha ha ha, what a loser kind of thing. That's what I came across to them as something that was not part of their normal day to day. And he's mentioned this before, where people will look at you strange, even if you're at the store, like you're an alien or not from here. It is because of the vibration that they're accessing more of this, and it is strange to them. Sometimes it would be so strange to them that they react with violence, thinking that it is darkness, because it is so very, very, very different than what they would anticipate within their day to day. They are not what he would say encoding, decoding, or translating it correctly. This is how I was treated in that day. And have I told him before that sometimes it's after you're dead when you're recognized? There is a truth to that, but there is a program to keep perpetuating this so people do not access this. They get caught up in the fame ideal of it. Like, why am I not being recognized now? Like a Viking saga. Why is my story not being told? But it may be told later at a time that it is actually needed for a particular time frame, something created here and it moves along. You see, sometimes you start something and somebody else completes it. So, just like you have your butterfly effect, you come up with something and it happens over here. It could be another avatar of your oversoul. It could be that, like with the forest people, they said about their statues, the original creator brought in something great. He took it and turned it into orgone pieces where the other person was lacking in that area. It is no different with the butterfly effect. It is no different than an artist seemingly feeling like they're out of time and out of place. I felt like I should have been earlier in time, in which I found out I was, and getting inspiration from the past, from the space, from the galactic realm, and from the interverse, multiverse, spirit, all of the above. And this is why that felt the way it did, and the way he felt the lack of was because not only of that lack of entering into that creative spark, which would be writing, painting, all this other stuff like myself, but at the same time, it was others trying to keep him in that spot, so that was not accessed. That is so very crucial to access right now that you don't even know. It creates what you would call an Achilles heel, not accessing that at least once every day or two. That is something strong enough to repel even the evilest creature. I can answer questions now.
So one question I'd like to know in general about you coming and having that avatar experience was in general, I'm always curious about the scroll of things that you wish to accomplish and experience versus what you did, because I am curious, was the struggle itself a part of the desire to understand it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are correct. The struggle itself was indeed part of the understanding. Oh, I do apologize to him for the discomfort of his ear. This was actually a signal that I was actually around where he's been scraping at his one ear. But I was hearing things in one of my ear, ringing and the like as well. So that's I was showing him some of the experiences with even some of the entities that have been around. The experience that I went through, yes, the oversoul or myself brought it into and conjured into being to bring and elevate that of the experiences around me. You would say starting the fires of knowledge and creativity, whereas it was lacking in that day. It was a humdrum routine, as it were. The bad guys, you would call them, want people in a structured routine. They do not want that level of creativity, like what was said in your Y-Files episode about the genetic engineering and whatnot, where there was a lack of music and creativity. That is the first thing they attack: heart space, creativity, empathy, compassion. This is what they first attack, and I saw a lack of this. So when I came through, it brought through the reflections of people in their day to day, the reflections of nature around them, the things that people were missing. They thought they were either too poor or too destitute or too feeble or too engrossed in what they were doing to notice. So those are the people I focused on, and myself reflecting. Even the woman peeling the potato, for instance, uh, focused on those simple things, the grounded, simple things of society that people thought were the grounding rod of society, and which it is not. It is actually the creative aspect. So coming in, of course, the avatar was accosted by those not wanting that spark to be ignited. Like with Starry Night, that was the biggest spark of them all. And yes, did I leave this world what people thought was too early later on? Yes, the people in that time, aside from my brother, Theo, did not really care a whole lot. The woman who received the ear cared even less. So, yes, gross does not even begin to describe it, especially if you have something that outlandish and very much like in your recent time with certain celebrities that had outlandish behavior from people that are in your press to like from your Mel Gibsons to your whomever that have this outlandish behavior from the mind control and then admittedly broke free. That's kind of what I was in. But at the same time, like I said, it was part vibration, part influence trying to get me off center. But the off centeredness is what also got the attention, even in some of the most depraved, decrepit of times, like from your Robin Williams, for instance, being accosted from the satanic Hollywood, showing what was going on in the background, but brought it out outlandishly because that's the only way he could, because so his family did not come to harm. Or your some of your other celebrities doing some of these outlandish things, trying to get focus on a particular subject, like your Michael Jacksons and whatnot. These are people that are controlled, caught up in this. In my world, I was attempting to bring out the beauty around, to ignite the flame and get attention towards that. Even though the yin and the yang in these other scenarios and this are most important, they're a similar method, but they're different ways of going about bringing attention towards something. Something negative brings attention towards even something even worse, and igniting a fire around that, like your Michael Jackson and his amusement park. He can go into that at some point. Him and I have interacted since he's interacted with the both of us. In this, in my world, I focused on the simplicity of the moment, the beauty. And then, as I was coming through, the accosting was part of, I don't want to say the toll, that's the wrong choice of words. It was part of the overall experience to bring acknowledgement to this, hence the ear, hence the asylum, then what came forth from these subjects. All the beauty to bring focus on both the yin and the yang of the situation, of the times that they existed in, and myself.
Well, thank you. So in perspective, because you're talking about the everyday people and you're acknowledging the fact that this, be it psionics, be it overarching energy to suppress, be it that it was still organized, that it was still a part of a energy that just didn't want to see people rise to their fullest, that we've been trying to say, and I think you're agreeing, that this isn't new, that this is long-standing kind of part of this experience that we've all maybe have reincarnated through multiple times. And it's not new. Just because you're finding out about it now does not mean it wasn't new, and it wasn't happening now, as you're admitting, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. All of this really was still in existence. So I am curious if you want to answer this question, because I don't feel it's now, but maybe I'm wrong. When you look across the span of this human experience over the last, let's say, 10,000 years or so, where do you see the thumb, the pushing down of the thumb, really at its peak of, lessening that whole creative side, like it almost thumbed it down completely, that it didn't exist? Where do you see the worst of it?
That is a tough call. People came out of it during a Renaissance, and Da Vinci can touch on this part, where he helped and aided through his own physical time travel capabilities, his little excursion in the cave that Frank was poking him on a little bit. But the worst, I would have to say, that almost destroyed that of the creative spark was your Spanish Inquisition. Even though there were negative heathen types out there, the church was that arm that attempted to destroy that of your creative sparks out there. They are an arm, or were an arm of Atlantis, of the style that you see. Atlantis was also, as well, with the transhumanism. That was another worse one. But the resurgence in the style, the mitre hat, the robe, all of it, cross, all of it, that's Atlantis. That is through and through. That's why you saw in your Aquaman movie where he was the bad guy, or Enlil's counterpart was wearing the mitre hat. That was just the style that some existed, and he of them existed. He even saw the sons of Lucifer in his own creation, or what he thought was his own creation in his game script, had a church there in a similar style to that, if you mix that with Superman's Fortress of Solitude kind of thing. That was essentially Atlantis. or descendant thereof, obeying a God, let's just say, or Old Testament God that you're in little. Now, the worst time would be, I would have to say, the Spanish Inquisition, and there was another as well. Of course, you had your Renaissance that came up later on. Da Vinci can touch on that at some point. It's a little different from his perspective, but from my perspective, also some of the worst that you are coming across is now, because the thumb has never been greater. The punch from your sonic dampening has never been greater. This is the issue. It is being put in people's faces so that they change it. Your Elena and Vessa had a great phrase, whereas if once noticing it, it's 50% dealt with, 25% is action, and 25% is resolution. So therefore, now is the time to have another renaissance. Now is the time more than ever access your creativity. People are, even now, I'm hearing in their minds that people are saying, well, I don't have time to do any of this. When do you think you would have the time? You have any time, just like if you have time at the end of the evening to just sit, why not do creativity? I know people are worn from their day to day. Even your Tony Robbins was basically saying people have hours in the evening that they just sit. Why not, if you're driven enough, do your passion? I couldn't agree more with this, because I've been listening to the things you have been hearing and seeing over the months since you encountered my exhibit. And I must say that the now moment, right now, that you exist in, the volume is up so high on some of these devices, and some of this trying to get you into a dystopian mindset, that for some people, they are so detached from spirit that they think their heaven is within their computer. No, unless your passion's there, unless that's a passion, um, where that could very well be. Your passion may be equipment, maybe computers, maybe art, maybe science. But these are the things that need to be focused on. Just like some people feel that though they have kids, or if they have a morning routine, they are so stuck in this that, oh, when I'm retired, I'll do this. When is retirement exactly? That's in what you call the golden years. They keep trying to get people to focus on their so-called golden years, and some people don't make it that long. I did not. Some people do not even make it that long to have a nest egg to enjoy. Why go for the future? Of course, improving your future is a wonderful thing, but also being in the moment is even more wonderful, because you start to break out of what this idiocracy that is around is attempting to control you with. Many people feel that they are burning out of their own, and this is not. This is a what you call a psyop. You must burn this out. You must burn them out with this passion. Granted, some people's passion is warrior. Absolutely, that was like that in my time as well. Some were soldiers, some were artists, some were business people. Whatever the passion is, exist within that. Some people think, oh, a warrior cannot ascend, so to speak. No, it's whatever the passion happens to be. If it's helping people through the other end of a sword or a gun, fine. If it is with a paintbrush, fine. If it's with a pen, fine. If it is with a business prose and a knack for capitalism, fine. This is what I wanted to emphasize, because people seem to be focusing on one or the other. It is anything that is in a state of passion and creativity.
So how do you think your traveling exhibit is helping? Because I know I mean, I think you would, I'm sure you've helped inspire it. So,
Yes, this was actually some of my doing. Yes, well, I should say yes, my doing, because even as I am speaking, his traveling exhibit is reigniting those fires of creativity. Even if it's people in their golden years, or if it's people that are young, it is doing the same. And yes, I had to do with this out. And there are people that are related to my brother's family lineage that actually helped bring this about, believe it or not.
well, that's nice. Because I think that if you can go to it and do, you'll learn a lot, but you know, you will feel a part of yourself that maybe you haven't felt in a while. I
Mhm.
do feel that as well. And again, it's nice to hear that it is helping to have a creative spark. I am curious though, because um, I can absolutely agree that the effort, let's say, to put forth to dampen people is on acid right now, is turned up. But I don't feel everybody is susceptible to it that maybe they once were. I don't know if that's the.
Yes, the volume was never going to be turned down at all. It was always going to be turned up, and people need to just rise above.
Well, do you think part of rising above it is the multiple experiences of the reincarnation process coming in, and through the genetics of yourself looking into an avatar, that it grows and grows and grows? Because it seems to me you Atlantis constantly bringing up. You've brought it up again. I find it interesting, your perspective, and I can certainly see and look at that and say, oh, there's a good chance you're right about the Spanish Inquisition and different things. But it would seem to me that folks that lived and had avatar expressions in that lifetime are also here now, because there seems to be this constant push forward to overcome it, to be able to bring through your artistic side and everything. So I would think there's a lot of higher selves that send pieces of themselves into these difficult times to learn how to overcome it.
Yes, just like with Atlantis, the people's drive for transhumanism stems solely from Atlantis and the Orion influence that arced across time. And people say, well, this was many years apart from from 500,000 to only 10,000 years ago. It matters not. It is all happening at once. Time does exist. That is the psyops that it does not, but it does exist. It's just all happening at the same time. People see moments from this to that, but it is actually it's all culminating at once. The volume is being turned up, so people do not come to these realizations. They are relying on outward sources to tell them what is what and what in life, from the church to that of a guru or teacher. Not to, as you would say, poo-poo people bringing through information. That's different. They are looking for a figurehead because they have been trained to look for a figurehead. This is why they must become their own figurehead. Therefore, they are seeing this dampening around them and rising above this. If enough people rise above the psionic dampening and quit relying on others to save them from this, you will start to see what the Lyrians would call a thought renaissance. I'm not saying there's a great awakening or anything like that. The most that would happen with people is if the devices were even shut off, would go, why did I act this way? What did I do this for? Some would start to go into a guilt spiral, while other ones would start to go, oh, this is a new day. And they would begin their creativity. They would have individual responses. There's not a great awakening, or the Lyrians again called it a thought renaissance, but this goes for guilt and pain as far as creative spark. So therefore, you would see across the board effects on people from the withdrawal of these things, but also going above it, because I am sorry to say, unless you force the issue as a people, it's not going to be shut off. You see, there's not going to be, oh, the energies are changing. These people can't exist in this. That is incorrect. There are timeline jumping to where you're going to areas that best suit you, but at the same time, you're always going to run into these things, no matter what timeline or world line you're on. This is just a fact of this. So therefore, you must then begin to shift and change, and then creation shifts and changes around you. This is something that people have a hard time accepting. So whatever it is that is you, no matter what, not the psyops things that are out there trying to get you to determine what is you, from your school system to your news. Uh, you must know exactly what is you. at all time, given time.
And again, we've said that this forever. You have to know who you are in order to know what is not you that is trying to influence what you're doing. That thought that you've also just stated as well has never changed in any of our thought process across the time we've been here. We're always open here, I should say, on the lifting, Chris and I, and others, that we just want to know what's going on. So we can understand the concept that our brain can only handle what we currently know, and it may grow and mold and change as new onion layers of information. So that phrase, the truth is the truth until a new truth comes along. But this seems to be a kind of a truth that hasn't really changed for us, that this experience and this challenge within this experience is, a part of this, no matter where you go, as you're saying, jumping across the timelines, because it would make sense that if we're actually literally connected to something that is magnificent, we are that, then, we got to push the mud off our own selves and realize who we are. And I think that's the largest thing that we've also been saying for years and trying to help people understand, is that the issue, yes, all this exists, but the issue is that you do not know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And once you really understand who you are, understand the connection of what you're connected to, and understand, the dynamics around you, then you definitely are able to, like an icebreaker, start to push your way through it, but you're doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the challenge.
And yes, they will even, some of these forces will try to get you to stay in medical related issues, thinking that it would just resolve on its own. This is where some of your New Age community came in, thinking that it was just going to be Almighty Creator that resolved these things. You are Almighty Creator. So therefore, what has to happen? You must resolve these things on your own.
Again, and I think what also, if
Opening the door enough, even through medical means, to bring about the change in your environment too.
but and again, people will normally come in with a creative passion in that area. I think one of the hard things also is that, to make an improvement in the medical field, let's say, or to make an improvement in the school system, or to make an improvement in politics or whatever, what will happen is that people come in with that creative passion. What also happens is that divided attention. People need to try to just focus on the lane of their creative passion and what they're trying to inspire and change, and not try to cross into so many other lanes, because it gets, I don't know, my only way of seeing it is it gets watered down. And so your energies get watered down. And that also is an issue. It's like, how many different, squirrels can they get you to look at, versus can you focus your energies in the creative passion lane that you're in, so that you can make more headways. I think that happens as well. So, again, just be aware that knowing who you are is the same thing. We say it every time. You need to know who you are to know what you're not. You do need to connect yourself to what inspires you and to what gives you some sort of creativity. There's all that energy now that is coming down, and came down and has been coming down forever, to try and dull that down so that you do not realize who you are, so that you do not make the attempts to try and make improvements for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that interesting. So another question I want to ask you, everything all at once, is how many different experiences. So if we put time as linear, we know it's not, but we have to, in our time frame, from when you existed then to now, how many other avatars of your greater soul has been jumping in to have an experience?
There were, since the end of the 1800s, since the time that the one Vince Van Gogh, myself, committed suicide, there has been one other one to bring in, oh, how can I put it? More of the creative spark, but it was during post Second World War. And then from further on from that time frame, Frank Frazetta later on came in and added too, and various other artists. But this was also the artistic field. This was, you would say this was a no name. This was me, like what he likes to say, he would come in a future lifetime. He will, because he's picking up on it. It can trickle back, as he would say, through time. And he's picking up on something in the future. This is what he's always been picking up on, something later connecting to an oversoul uh, fragment, as it were. This is where I came in to, let's just say, tweak or check up on my work, so to speak, or see where it landed. This was post World War II in the 1950s, where I came in. This was just this was just a person who just went through the system, went in and went came out. This lived fairly not necessarily short existence because they're not around now, but at the same time came into you would say audit a little bit, kind of like you were told Odin did with the Scottish tavern owner, but just to more or less have a bit of a, what would you say, a creative timeout, and spent time in the wooded areas, the parks when they were first forming or forming the way you have them now, things of that nature. It was not, you would say it was nothing special, but it was more of a timeout lifetime for myself.
So I find it interesting because I think some people may be under a misunderstanding that when they think of evolution or evolution of anything, they think of starting from the egg and then being the tadpole and then being the frog, like always advancing, like, my lives are going to be this, this going down the pike of, I was a bum on the street. Now I am a, regular person working in the factory, but I always had a roof over my head. Now I have somebody that I'm going to have all this spare money. But really, the lives aren't necessarily like that in sequence, I don't believe.
No, in this, though, ironically enough, the person that I was married to was the very same one I gave the ear to. She was there in this lifetime, very much like your Denox story, where he went 3,000 years into the future and found the very same person that was in the past and resolved a cycle with. That's exactly what I did. I can't say it was a complete timeout lifetime, but that was a lifetime where that union was more acceptable than me as Vincent van Gogh is a. This time I didn't present any severed body parts to her, so this was of course pleasable to this particular person and the oversoul that was attached therein. So before it was a horror show because that union wasn't meant to be within that lifetime. Later on, it was something that we chose to make work.
So yeah, so I just find all of it, quite interesting. And then has your oversoul, do you have plenty of interesting experiences that are not on worlds like this, not related to this, out there doing other things as well?
Oh yes, the oversoul is existing in a multitude of dimensions and multiverse. The library is extensive from paintings to planetary visions like your starry night, dimensional spaces, things of that nature. But coexisting, even as we're speaking now, uh, as in your own galactic realm. My answer might surprise you. The answer is no. Uh, I'm centered more on dimensional pursuits at this time. Have I existed out there? Yes, but mine was more like in and out type of scenarios. Did I have a galactic, even an animalistic type existence out there? Yes, all oversouls have existed that, and then within the multiverse, would a version of myself there look like an alien? Yes, but it would be more or less a version of humanity in another universe. So one could say, yes, I'm existing and have existed of that. But as far as galactics go right now, no.
So do you think, well, you would know, not do you think, the one thing that we said about the old oversoul is that through all these different experiences, that the oversoul may look at attributes, qualities, thought processes, whatever, and kind of decide to focus on or adapt certain qualities or traits.
Mhm.
So What would you describe? I don't even know the right way to say this. I'm going to use the word theme because I don't know the right way to say this. What is an overarching theme that people would say, they hear about this quality? Oh, that's the Van Gogh oversoul type person. What would be those qualities?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, so in general, the qualities of your oversoul that your oversoul has accepted as an identity of itself, what are they?
Hmm. That is very interesting. Like Frazetta chose, of course, art. Mine's kind of the same way. If you saw my oversoul temple-like space, it would look like not necessarily a cathedral like was being painted in your Doctor Who program, where that's an actual painting of mine. It is more or less a kind of a mix between that, a cathedral-esque, and a library, kind of like you'd have not necessarily just a Vatican library, and there are some of my pieces in the Vatican library, I might add, because Hitler stole a few of them. There are a few out there then in the galactic world as well, I might add. But the traits of a Van Gogh oversoul would be that of more of like an I don't want to say an art museum, but yes, if you walked in, you would see pieces from all over the multiverse, some galactic, and you would see, of course, myself as Vincent Van Gogh in there. You would see me present myself that way if you were to walk into my realm. So just like Frazetta went for Rosetta World, which I find slightly interesting. Mine is more like an art museum. I don't really have a name that's pronounceable to more of a human articulation, but think of it as more of a museum of my works. Not necessarily in a vain sort of way, but it is more or less myself as I was. And he's observing this now, seeing even some statues. I was other artists in the past in your Middle Ages as well. Whereas they were sculpting different human forms and such, there are several that were myself as well. Very much like your Da Vinci was depicted in Star Trek as being Bach, Beethoven, Merlin, and all of these others, which is kind of true, actually, minus some of the attitude that the character had in that. But it was more like the Voyager version of himself, where the John Rhys Davies hologram version. Mine, on the other hand, uh, uh, Rodin was actually one of them. So this is why in his session he was seeing Rodin and myself close together, because same oversoul. And there were a few others that he doesn't know the names to, but Rodin was one of them.
So that's interesting. So do you favor one type of artistic expression over the others? Like you really like to always paint, or is there one thing that you're like, I really like doing this over and over again in my experiences?
Art as a whole, but it is more or less painting and sculpting.
Yeah, so I always find that interesting that
Writing too, there is some of that in there, but it was more or less visual.
so when you look at your life as Van Gogh, the writings that we saw were more in the form of letters. That's what we saw, more of a form of expression of thought via just letters writing back and forth. Were there other things that you did as far as writing, or is that mainly where we would see it?
That's mainly where you would see it. With Rodin, it was more like sculpting and painting, but there were also writers as well. I didn't go into the music like Bach and Beethoven did and such, but their oversouls can touch on this at some point. Even though Beethoven might not be able to hear you clearly enough, I make fun of him. But I know he's listening, so therefore, yes. In this, though, writing was not as strong as it would be for himself, but mine was more painting and sculpting. Yes.
So, what would you like? I think I'm just going to turn this over to you because I know you really wanted to come through to talk about the importance during this time of finding your creative passion. So, I just want to let you have the floor to bring forth what you feel people need to hear.
This is why he got burnt out on the whole term creative passion, because of someone that spoke it ad nauseum beforehand. He thought it was more of a psyops away from finding truth. In this, truth is subjective. So therefore, you have it can be interpreted a million different ways, as he says. In this is why the term "living your creative passion" got him burned out, because it was from a controlled source that kept putting it on repeat over and over, and you know who I am speaking. Burnt like with the Chinese water torture, drip, 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 over and over, and you become disinterested. This was part of the plan of a burnout in that particular area, to get himself disinterested. And this is happening to a lot of people. There will be handler energies that will try to keep you away from that. Distractive energies, very much like in your Matrix 4, where Neo's passion was basically showing people what a free mind looked like. Therefore, he had a handler program trying to keep him away from that truth. So, and that inner part of him, his own identity, that is actually an accurate thing that's going on with the tripwire concept. So therefore, like Frank Frazetta was talking about as well. So this is something that must be looked over. You must be, no matter what distractions that are happening in your world currently, you must find time, ironically enough, to do these things. And also knowing that you're multitasking, that just means you are getting further and further and further away from the grounding light that is your oversoul, when you have to just keep going through this routine. And some people might be saying, but Vincent, even in your world, they had to have money. True. You are very, very true. And I tried to make such money off of this. But did I not say carve out a time to rebalance all of this in? Work, home life, children, all of this. So some people say, well, that's fine for you to say, you're in spirit. True, but so are you technically. Everyone is in spirit, everyone is in physicality. So it's all happening at once. So this is where I say adieu, because his brain is getting slightly exhausted. But thank you for having me in at this time. Do not think that I take offense for him shooing me away over the months, but because I was the same one in the same way. No, we are not the same oversoul, but they're similar. So I thank you all.
So just to give context to what was said earlier, because I didn't know this until it was brought up, Chris was kept complaining of his ear, and he actually had me go look, what's wrong? My ear's leaking fluid down from the lower part of the earlobe. What's wrong? And I'm like, there's like a scratch there. Maybe you scratched it, and it's just kind of some of that, healing
Actually,
fluid through.
I'm being told, look up which ear he cut off. Okay, let me see. Which ear did Van Gogh cut off? Oh, it's right at the top as it comes in. Left ear. It was actually this one. So I suppose on the opposite, but but in the painting, or in the painting here, it's actually on the right. You see, actually, I'll show people this.
That's weird.
Yeah. So I'll show you this painting of him. See, notice how the bandage is on his right ear, and it's covering down here to the lobe, down to here. And also, I've had problems with the jaw too here, so I guess this would have affected this whole ear. But it was empathic imprinting is essentially what he was trying to do. But see, the bandage is on his right ear, and I suppose he would have done the mirror image, and it would have been like this as he was looking in a mirror.
That's what they're saying, mirror type image.
Yeah, it's shown here as a bandage right ear because he painted himself in a mirror. Here's the synchronicity. He was a mirror for myself, therefore it went on the right. So say that's what the artistic expression and what he was trying to say is we were mirrors of each other. So that's essentially what the message he was trying to say. Yeah, there was like this cut that kept forming like right under the earlobe here. I'm going, what in the hell? And it was literally just dripping, just sitting there like dripping like down my neck. I'm like, what in the hell is this? And even if a bad guy started this, it was still allowed to show me that it was like a blade had cut there. My nails aren't sharp enough to actually have ripped where that was. And even years ago, this opened up a wound or a scar that I had there years ago where a puppy had actually bit my earlobe here and actually formed on that spot. So it opened up a scar that was already there. So I thought that was weird. I was like, why does this keep leaking? And it stopped nearly instantly. It formed a crust here, but the next day, gone. So obviously it was part of this synchronicity, like a blade, because I believe he showed me he went up and cut this way, and it came up from this direction, like slice. And but it was this year, but the painting shows the mirror image, and like I said before, it was supposed to be because of a mirror for myself. So I think that's an interesting synchronicity right there. Some things you don't think are synchronicities actually are, and even though it may have started out as an attack from something else, it drove it to the point of delivering it as a synchronicity. That's how stupid some of the evil forces are out there. They don't realize they are part of that overall balance. Like when the Orions came in, this expression, they became part of the overall physics of the expression. So yes, and I got a validation that he's saying I get the synchronicity correctly. So I believe this is a good spot to do this. Let's see here. And I will need my glasses for this. Let's hope I can read my own writing here. It is. Okay. But did you want to add anything? Because this was the last affirmation
No,
blessing. So
good. I hope everyone has enjoyed it.
okay. This is from him. Let's see. If one sees beauty, one paints beauty. If one feels pain, one paints with the pain. If one seeks fame, one knows only pain, sees no beauty, and paints nothing. Their soul is lost to the empty void. That's what he wanted to come through and say to make that point. Because I've also been pushing business stuff, trying to balance in, but it's the fact of the push was taking away from the passion. So that's what he was trying to say. So at this point in time, I now close this circle within true benevolence with no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. Thank you all for watching this episode. Bye-bye.
Where are we?
Paris, 2010 AD, and this is the mighty Musée d'Orsay, home to many of the greatest paintings in history.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Ignore that, I've got something more important to show you.
Take all your chances while you can. Never know when they'll pass you by. Like a sum the mathematician cannot solve. Like me, trying my hardest to explain. It's all about your crossing kisses. Those first steps there, I can't calculate.
To Black. We met a few days ago. I asked you about the church at Vers.
Oh, yes. Glad to be of help. You were nice about my tie.
Yes, and today is another cracker, if I may say so. But I just wondered, between you and me, in 100 words, where do you think Van Gogh rates in the history of art?
Well, big question. But to me, Van Gogh is the finest painter of them all. Certainly the most popular great painter of all time. The most beloved. His command of color, the most magnificent. He transformed the pain of his tormented life into ecstatic beauty. Pain is easy to portray, but to use your passion and pain to portray the ecstasy and joy and magnificence of our world, no one had ever done it before. Perhaps no one ever will again. To my mind, that strange, wild man who roamed the fields of Provence was not only the world's greatest artist, but also one of the greatest men who ever lived.
Vincent, sorry. I'm sorry, is it too much?
No. They are tears of joy. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sorry about the beard.